shredding their cred. That's the focus of tonight's angle. It was back in February when Gallup reported that trust in the press is now at an all-time low. They're losing credibility every year. Because why? Because of their seething hatred of Trump and the MAGA movement. They've either gotten most of the major stories wrong or just purposely ignored what was obviously true. Now, some of the prime examples, how they downplayed the Biden border crisis, how they dismissed questions about Biden's decline. Of course, can't forget the truth about COVID, what closing the schools and businesses were going to do to the country, and then their celebration of men and women's sports. They love that. And now their sudden interest in Jeffrey Epstein. For years, their incessant peddling of the Trump delusion of Russian collusion, that lie. And, of course, they trusted Obama's intel chiefs blindly. It was all a joke. The so-called mainstream press has botched so many stories, big and small, and made so many predictions that never came true that the entire industry is having an existential crisis. But what's odd here is they refuse to do the basics to dig themselves out of the hole they're in. Instead, they're digging themselves in deeper. Byron York, who'll join us in a few moments, recently tweeted, "Such an odd time. At precisely the moment we learned definitively that the premise of the biggest hysteria of Trump was Trump won, the Trump administration was false, some of the same people who stoked it are working hard at spinning up a new hysteria for Trump, too." We'll speak with Byron again in moments. Now, one would think that when thousands of documents are declassified regarding the debunked Trump-Russia narrative, that the press and all the elected officials would take these documents seriously. But no, they just pretend that it's all old news, and they try to change the subject to an issue they never cared about during Biden's term.
He doesn't want us to talk about the Epstein scandal, so he threw up Tulsi Gabbard to bring out this old, unsubstantiated charge against Barack Obama, who was 3 presidents ago.
He told us that he knew that Epstein liked women on the younger side, girls on the younger side.
You're alleging criminality.
If he
Go
knew.
ahead, say it directly.
No,
say it so we can all hear it. You're
I'm saying it out loud because I think that's what a lot of people are wondering.
What a despicable thing to say, even for Ana Navarro. That's what a lot of people are wondering. That's called gossip. Okay, sweetie? Now, especially after no one in the Biden administration thought Epstein was a priority or any of the documents that they're desperate to, have released. For 4 years, they didn't care. Now, no wonder people hate the media. Now, at this point, neither the press nor the Democrats have a shred of cred. A few months ago, the Journal's Gerard Baker, no fan of Trump, summed up the reputational pit that the press is in. The ability of the traditional media to influence events is attenuated to the point of near extinction. The best measure of this, most of them spent a decade trying to defeat Donald Trump. 10 years on, he's stronger than he's ever been. No one cares anymore, meaning no one cares about what the press has to say. Of course, we know MSNBC's ratings, CNN's ratings, they're in the toilet day and night. They feature former government officials with fancy resumes, but zero common sense. Obama's mucking around with intel assessments. That's not undermining democracy. But Tulsi's being open and transparent about it is.
What Tulsi Gabbard, I think, is doing will cause generational damage to the countries that we need to share intelligence with us and the American people who should have every faith and every confidence in the leaders of our intelligence community.
Nice try, Ned. The American people don't trust the intel agencies, not because of someone who's been at the DNI for 5 months, but because of people like James Clapper and John Brennan, who were moving at the direction of Barack Obama himself. It was all a lie. Like almost everything about the Obama aura, it was all fake. This was from October 2016, when Obama talked about how he viewed his obligations and responsibilities as president.
I'd make the effort to, as best I could, be honest to the American people, to make sure that I was protective of the institutions, that there are certain norms and standards and values and customs that make it work. If you are willing to say anything and do anything, even when it undermines everything that's been built by previous generations. That's a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem. And yes, it was, because of what you did. And now your legacy, Mr. President, is coming into full focus. For decades, we warned that the so-called mainstream press, they were ignoring the concerns of normal Americans. And when they did this, they were isolating themselves in a left-wing bubble, and that they were becoming less and less relevant as they became more and more extreme. Well, they ignored us, laughed us off, just waved us off, and doubled down on their deranged partisanship. And now they're paying the price. Americans are moving on, and the folks who spent the last 10 years lying about President Trump are being left behind and exposed one by one. And that's the angle.
Democrats threw a party today, and no one showed up.
What the is up? Let's go! So some ground rules. I don't think that this will be super necessary because you all seem really cool, smart, and hot. Who the are we? And why are we here in a panda head? I also have had a long-term feud with former presidential candidate Marianne Williamson because she sucks. Memes change people's minds. So what's a meme, huh? Come on, people. Look alive.
After the panda, there was a really special guest.
I'm gonna go ahead and give it to the person who's giving us special remarks.
Hello, voters of tomorrow. I want to thank you for everything you all are doing to organize, empower, and advocate for Gen Z. We must be intentional about lifting up our young leaders and encouraging your ambition. Your generation has grown up on the front lines of so many crises, from COVID and the climate crisis to gun violence and mental health. You know what's at stake, and you are not waiting for someone else to figure it out.
Technical difficulties aside, that right there, if you didn't recognize her, was Kamala Harris. She's been on a siesta, and she looks tan and rested or something. The chair of the DNC saw this and said, yep, the party's dead.
There's no doubt that, we have work to do. When you hit rock bottom, there's only one direction to go, and that's up. And that's what we're doing.
The chair of the party just said Democrats are at rock bottom. At least he's honest. Where are all the great Democrats fighting for democracy? I thought democracy was under attack. Tampon can't party. He's been goofing off in the wilderness in a bathing suit. Hips don't lie Hakeem never looks like he's having any fun. And he talks like he's playing Lincoln Logs with words. Kami Mandami got everybody excited, but then he flew back to Africa, and we started looking at government-run grocery stores, and all the shelves were empty. Can't have a party without food. Are there any Democrats man enough to lead?
My biggest problem with Democrats is it's like everything they're saying now, you should have been saying 2-3 years ago. Like, we've been saying Democrats was cowards. So, yes, y'all should have been toughened up.
The only guy who knows how to party's Hunter. But he's talked so much trash that Chuck Todd wants him off the invite list.
I have a real problem with the folks that are booking him. If you've chosen to book Hunter Biden, you've chosen to book spectacle. I don't like it when politicians use the media or campaigns or voters for their own therapy. I think people should use therapy when they need it. I have in the past. I'm a huge advocate of it. But let's not do it in public. Try to deal with your issues amongst yourself.
And with Obama on the ropes and the big guy's ghostwriter working on his memoirs, that means Kamala's in charge. Carville says maybe the third time's a charm. Do you really think you should run another woman? You guys are 0-2 with women.
I don't know. Democratic voters are going to decide that. I don't think a person's gender, we're going to nominate women going forward, and as we well should. All right? I don't have anything, but what I want, if it's a male or a female, I want them to be able to talk about things and communicate in a very direct way.
Carville called his party a cracked-out clown car. And just because you're loud doesn't mean it's a good time. The squad's on the front lawn trying to get people to look.
This is all for you. let the food in.
The DNC chair was wrong. Now they've hit rock bottom. Wait, there's more.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Say the words. Say the words. Say them. Say them out loud. Say them again.
Grown women are screaming DEI and banging on pots and pans. And grown men are dressed up as furries and photoshopping their hips. The media is now asking Democrats, if you could go back in time, is there anything you'd do differently?
Do you have any second thoughts? Any second thoughts about what happened last summer or with
I don't have any second thoughts. But I do have a second thought about the Republicans. If they want to measure mental acuity or sanity, they ought to look to their own president. Because the president of the United States, who was asked one question and answers by saying President Obama is guilty of treason, he is not of sane mind.
Nancy does not look well, which is weird because her portfolio was up 54% last year. Beat all the top hedge funds on Wall Street. Why the long face, Nance? Her adopted son, Gavin Newsom, the grape grower, keeps telling us how scared he is. Why is Gavin always so scared?
Do you think he's going to try and stay in power?
When people
beyond his term?
close to Donald Trump, when people close to Donald Trump send the governor of California a hat that says Trump 2028, they're not fucking around.
Now, if I were a Democrat, all I would be talking about is Epstein, because you don't have anything to say about anything. But Democrats better be careful what they wish for.
People should really focus on how well the country's doing, or they should focus on the fact that Barack Hussein Obama led a coup. I have nothing to do with the guy. You ought to be speaking about Bill Clinton, who went to the island 28 times. I never went to the island.
Democrats predicted Trump would jack up inflation, cause a recession, a civil war, and World War III. But inflation's tame. The stock market just hit a record high, and we're signing peace and trade deals.
We had the best 6 months ever. We're now heading to Scotland. I'm meeting with the Prime Minister of UK. We have great economic numbers. The deal with Japan is amazing. Those numbers are great. I mean, the kids actually just said, very, very cute, actually. I walked up, they said, sir, there's too much winning. Our country was a dead country. It was a dead country 1 year ago. Now we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. And don't you feel it?
This isn't just the best party in town. With Trump, we might be leaving with a goodie bag.
We have so much money coming in. We're thinking about a little rebate, but the big thing we want to do is pay down debt. But we're thinking about a rebate. That's a very good question. You just made a lot of news. We're thinking about a rebate because we have so much money coming in from tariffs that a little rebate for people of a certain income level might be very nice.
Tariff stimmies. Now, when he signs his name on those checks and mails them out, even Democrats are going to be begging for a third term.
And welcome to this special edition of Hannity, the anatomy of a hoax. Tonight, the floodgates are open and the evidence continues to pour in. Make no mistake, there was election interference and Russia collusion in the 2016 election and beyond, but not by President Trump. Instead, according to new evidence published by the Director of National Intelligence, declassified information, powerful bureaucrats in the federal government absolutely fabricated lies and conspiracy theories that were then fed to and disseminated by the state-run legacy media mob, and of course Hillary Clinton, and perhaps even orchestrated by Barack Obama himself. They devised, they executed a plot to delegitimize Donald Trump's victory in 2016 and his presidency, and frankly, that led to his entire life, the grand conspiracy, as Kash Patel is looking into. And it was all based on actual Russian disinformation. We have referred to it often on this program as Hillary Clinton's bought and paid for dirty Russian disinformation dossier. In other words, your federal government used this information. It was not only unproven, They were warned against it, and then it was proven to be completely and utterly debunked and bogus. They used the salacious dossier to create what was a phony intelligence assessment, reportedly ordered by then-President Obama, according to this new information, all designed to smear Donald Trump and cast doubt on the results of the 2016 presidential election. This took up 3 years of Donald Trump's first term. And breaking tonight, new documents obtained by the Federalists reveal the very serious objections that were being voiced by career senior intelligence officials. They issued the following memo. Listen to this, quote, unless the FBI is prepared to provide much better sourcing, I believe this should not be included in the paper. And according to the memo, the dossier used, quote, poor source tradecraft and had, quote, extremely sketchy sourcing and simply does not meet normal intelligence community standards. Now, other career officials even warned that there was, quote, no evidence that Russia preferred a Trump presidency or was doing anything to swing this election in his favor at all whatsoever. Well, the Obama CIA director didn't care. Obama obviously didn't care. They ignored all of the warnings. These are senior career top intelligence officials. They ignored them all. They ditched the very real previous intelligence assessment. In other words, the real one. They published a new fake and fraudulent report, according to Tulsi Gabbard, ordered by Barack Obama himself, one that was filled with phony claims about then President-elect Donald Trump. Brennan then reportedly spread this newly minted smear far and wide to other government officials, elected lawmakers, and, of course, the always complicit and compliant state-run legacy media mob. And they, of course, ran with the lie. And according to Gabbard, he did all of this for his dear leader, Barack Hussein Obama. To make matters worse, Brennan is now widely accused of lying about this hoax every single step of the way, even by his own employees. Take a look at this op-ed headline, quote, John Brennan was my boss at the CIA. He belongs in prison. Even law professor, our friend Jonathan Turley, is telling the former CIA director to lawyer up, which according to one report, he already has. Take a look.
It does appear that a couple of these figures may have committed perjury. I think the most vulnerable may be Brennan, who's like a 30-point buck now out in the open. I mean, this stuff goes directly to information that he gave to Congress. It seems to be in contradiction. And so there are real questions here. These individuals, whether it's Comey or Brennan, are not protected from perjury charges if the statute of limitations has not run. They are more likely to be called again to repeat prior testimony.
In the case of Comey, remember, he signed 3 of the 4 FISA applications. Remember, they only last for 3 months, and then they have to reapply. Now, think of the timing. He was warned in August of 2016 not to use it. It was likely political. It became the bulk of information for that FISA application. And even after it was debunked, he was still using this. When they find out information is false that you present before a FISA court as a matter of law, you are supposed to go back to the judge and say, well, we found new information. This information is not true. Now, this matter is in the hands of Donald Trump's DOJ. Now, as we speak, there is a strike force assembled by the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, working around the clock now to determine what crimes may have been committed and by who. Who knew what, when, and where? Brennan, Comey, Clapper, even former President Obama are now all the subjects of a very serious and very real investigation. But tonight, one thing is crystal clear. Barack Obama was a terrible president, and he abused his power. He fomented a culture of pious corruption inside the halls of our federal bureaucracy. To this day, I can all but assure you that the former deep state actors who carried out this plot to delegitimize a duly elected president, Donald Trump, still believe they did nothing wrong. They didn't care at all about the will of all of you, the American people. They believed their opinions mattered much more, and this information clearly is suggesting that they were willing to lie, manipulate, undermine a duly elected president. To them, using the almighty power of the U.S. government to subvert the will of the American people is what justified, because in their hearts, they truly believe they know better than all of us. And for the past decade, that was the real threat to our democracy. In fact, the biggest this country has faced in some time. This makes Watergate, frankly, look like a jaywalking violation.
All right. So President Trump signed an executive order this week calling on states and cities to end endemic vagrancy, which is not something I got from a beach chair at spring break. The order calls for, quote, shifting homeless individuals into long-term institutional settings for humane treatment through the appropriate use of civil commitment. Wow. This is exactly the kind of thing that could put Seattle out of business. And it notes the federal government and the states have spent tens of billions on failed programs that address homelessness, but not its root causes, leaving other citizens vulnerable to public safety threats. In other words, their license to punch kids in the face is getting revoked. Because for too long, we were told we must sympathize with the violent and deranged and not the people they prey upon. Call it suicidal empathy, where liberals' excessive compassion undermines our own self-preservation. It's true, for every tourist pushed in front of a New York subway train, violent criminals get a free Panera bread bowl. That's a joke. That's not really happening. According to the White House, nearly 300,000 people were sleeping on the streets each night last year under President Joe Biden, while a few hundred were sleeping under Bill Clinton. But Trump talked about finally doing something about it during the 2024 campaign.
When I'm back in the White House, we will use every tool, lever, and authority to get the homeless off our streets. We want to take care of them, but they have to be off our streets. There is nothing compassionate about letting these individuals live in filth and squalor rather than getting them the help that they need. We need professionals to help them.
So now he's following through. Another promise made and kept. Of course, a lot of people will oppose this because he's the one doing it. Even though for decades politicians said they'd fix homelessness, but never had the guts to get it done. And so we were led to believe that this grim reality was simply inevitable. But Trump's focusing on returning a decent life to Americans, including the mentally ill. Once again, he says, you don't have to live like this. Of course, homeless advocacy groups will push back because suffering is a cash cow. There's a whole entire homeless industrial complex of NGOs that paid themselves fat salaries while making the problem worse. Remember when Bill de Blasio gave his wife $900 million taxpayer dollars to address these issues? And that cash disappeared faster than a plate of nachos at The View. Hell, if I gave my wife $800 million, at least our walls would be changed from eggshell white to cream. In California, an audit last year found that $24 billion was spent over 5 years without ever tracking its effect on homelessness. The cash vanished and the suffering continued. Really, they should run Gavin Newsom out of town on a rail, if they could only build a rail. Of course, the ACLU has already lashed out, saying it's targeting people. But it's not targeting anybody, it's protecting everyone. As the White House notes, the goal is to ensure that Americans feel safe in their own communities and that individuals suffering from addiction or mental health struggles get the help they need. In this case, libs should just stop with the destructive compassion and get the out of the way. Trump is doing the things they won't do because such actions threaten their status as the good liberal. They'd rather virtue signal on their own behalf than actually help others. But no one in their right mind sees a guy covered in living on a subway platform in 90-degree heat and says, you know, it's great, we're so compassionate. No, they say, someone better get Don Lemon back on his feet. Walter, you spend a lot of time outdoors. You almost have like that homeless tan that we see in the Lower East Side. Why is the left happy with the status quo and expect us to be happy with it? It's like we're supposed to just look at homelessness as part of the fabric of living in a city.
Well, because the only reason to vote for the left is guilt and sadness. And homeless people out on the street promote a feeling of guilt and sadness. this is going to be very confusing for young people. See, for me, who lived for a while when there weren't homeless all over the streets, it'll just be a return to normal.
Yes.
But young people are going to go, where did they go?
Yes.
These people I got used to, these people that were everywhere are suddenly gone. And what's going to happen is MSNBC is going to say Trump is killing them.
Right.
And they're going to be prey to every rumor. But the thing I've never understood about homelessness is, we don't want them living outside.
Yeah.
But we can't put them inside. Mm-hmm. And those are the only two sides.
Yes.
I mean, we could do like a carport thing where there's a roof, but it's still outside. It just seems like a problem no one ever wanted to solve because they were making too much money off it. Mm-hmm. And the drug dealers are going to hate it because now they're going to have to smuggle the drugs into a facility and somehow expect their money's going to come out.
Yeah.
Instead of just being able to drive up.
That is a great point, though. I didn't think of that, Dagan. It's like, if this actually works, a lot of people have grown up with this problem. And what if it just goes away? They are going to think, did aliens come and take away our homeless?
No, because they don't even, it's not a problem for them because they don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to be serious about this.
Yeah.
So you said they don't even have a grasp of the problem. So we all who experience this know that a large portion of the homeless are seriously mentally ill. Mm-hmm. But advocacy groups will tell you they don't even know the percentage. It's anywhere from 20% to 76% of homeless are seriously mentally ill. Well, that's not narrow. So there are 274,000 homeless sleeping on the street.
And that's conservative.
Right. So on the very conservative side, if 20% are seriously mentally ill, that's almost 55,000 people. Mm-hmm. There are only 36,000 state psychiatric hospital beds in the entire nation now. It is a record low. And more than half of them are taken up with people who are committed through the legal system. They're criminals.
Yeah.
And they've been committed to these hospitals. There's nowhere to put them because of a deinstitutionalization movement that has been going on since JFK was the president of the United States. So compassion has led to people who need treatment in a hospital living on the street. So you've always said, put the problem at the doorstep of these liberal snots and snobs. But you need to take the problem a little bit further and put it in the middle of their kitchen. Mm-hmm. Like at a bare minimum, one of these people who's on an airplane, who's like pacing up and down the aisle, who's like, I'm the realest person north of the Mississippi. I need to get down and get my charger so I can plug my phone in because Jesus Christ and my boss are trying to text me because I'm a record producer and Kanye is trying to get me on the horn and in the studio. Put that dude in the kitchen, or a version of him, of every liberal who is in a position of power. This problem would be cleared up like that.
Yeah, there you go. Fly him. Send him to, where did we send the homeless? We sent illegal immigrants, Martha's Vineyard. That would be nice. So, do you have a homeless problem where you live in Jersey?
Oh, yeah. I saw this dude today, yesterday, homeless dude. I was like, I just seen him across town. How the hell did he get all the way over here? I know his feet are burning. It's absolutely crazy. We do have a little bit. It's not as bad as California, But I saw somebody the other day that were complaining about Trump and what he's trying to do. And I'm like, yo, are y'all really complaining he's trying to solve a problem? It's like, y'all acting like he cheated on you at a Coldplay concert or something like that. Like, relax, lady. But I do have a solution, and similar to Dagan's. I think every politician should have to live amongst the lowest rung of the society. So imagine Gavin Newsom in a 2x2 cardboard apartment.
Yes.
With Pissy Pete. And it's his turn to take on the sidewalk. I am sure Gavin Newsom would find a solution to homelessness. Mm-hmm. That is the solution to the problem.
And they don't call him Pissy Pete because he's unhappy. Emily, how hard is this going to be to pull off? So he has this EO. Are they going to do what they did with the illegal immigration, which all these local judges are they going to throw to gum up the works?
Yeah, throw just like the homeless do.
Yeah.
I think the biggest problem with this that I see, too, is how revealing all of this resistance is. Because what argument are they going to make, I'm curious, as they resist this? You know, calling that homeless population unhoused did nothing.
Right.
Throwing $24 billion at the problem in California did nothing. Seattle spends $1 million per homeless person per year, and it has done nothing. So now I'm curious, what are their arguments going to be? Oh, you're taking this soiled person off the street? Oh, you're taking this multi-rape victim who lives among 20 men without walls off the street? Oh, you're getting this person treatment and help? When you look at the homeless population and you see the sort of variable statistics, even at the lower end, they are so frightening with the amount of disease, with the amount of sexual assaults and rape, obviously the self-harm and the drug use and everything. And then what about the outward assaults? What about the infection that New York City has suffered in the subways? We haven't continued on the stories of the Thai model that was beaten, the young woman that was stabbed 60 times. There's not enough time in this show to describe the crime.
We have to move on, but it's a good point is that we often talk about the homeless being victims because we're all too scared to say that we are also victims. Right. Because then everybody goes, oh, you're so mean, these poor people. It's like, no, a lot of these... I've lived in New York for, 20 plus years. I know my homeless people in my neighborhood really well.
Same.
And a lot of them, they aren't crazy. They're just having a good time.
That's right.
But enough about those wacky people from Outnumbered. Up next, the Dems' embarrassing tweet.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.